Hey everyone, it's been a long time. I have missed you all, and I feel like I've gone on my walkabout, and I'm sure you've got stories to tell as well. So, where do we leave off? Well, I had a baby about almost a year and a half ago now, and I also moved. I went from Los Angeles to the middle of the woods on 7 acres of land and thousands of miles away. I've been very busy. We bought a new house and I've been very busy with fixing it up. Of course, not done yet, but I've also been doing a lot of personal readings. Even though I haven't been putting up videos, a lot of you have contacted me and that's been amazing as well. I can tell that everyone is growing spiritually at an extreme exponential rate, and that's wonderful. We are most definitely in the Age of Aquarius, and it seemed to really get going in 2012, and since then it just feels like it just is going faster and faster and faster. And at this point, it's hard for me to even think about much else other than that because it's just so exciting to watch the process change. So, if you feel like in the last 2 years, or even in the last, let's say, 7 years, 8 years, you have changed so much that you don't even recognize yourself, you are not alone. And as I mentioned in my last video that I did, as we were having our North Node going into Gemini and South Node in Sagittarius, this is an intense part of the process as well because change happens rapidly when you have K2 in Sagittarius and Rahu in Gemini. So it's a time of wisdom and a time of knowledge. Now for me, my spiritual journey has been a lot about love, personal experience, and transmuting tragedies into beautiful knowledge, beautiful wisdom. My journey has been very much me and how I'm connected to others, my love for others. But this part of my process has been where I'm going out and being more on my own as far as physically, but spiritually I do feel more connected than ever to that collective consciousness. And I think the trees are helping me with that. And I'm able to not have that noise of the city. I'm always going to be, as they say, a people person. I love people, but there's a time and a season for everything. And this is part of my, Luke Skywalker, training in the swamp part of the story. So I'd love to hear in the comments from everyone else where you're at, how you've changed, what sort of revelations you've discovered. So many things are going on right now. And usually when I talk about healing and astrology, it's very much a personal thing. But there are times, like right now, where there's so much focus on the whole world, and even further, perhaps, for good reason, because we're at a pivotal moment of massive, massive change. And so it would be silly, I think, to just focus on personal growth, because our personal growth is so tied in to this experience that we're living right now. So yes, while it is true that in order to change the world, we have to change ourselves, it is also true that we should understand how we are so affected by our environment around us, because we are made of water, we are made of vibrations, and we feel everything that's going on. So I've been working on getting more in tune with those feelings and hoping to increase my spiritual gifts and abilities. There's just so much to talk about. So this video is kind of just hello, and I do intend to at least put up a video every month. I'm going to really try to do that. My life is quite busy with the kids, but this means a lot. When I stopped making videos, I felt like there was some things that I really just couldn't say yet, and I wanted to, but sometimes when we vocalize it and maybe people aren't ready to hear it, or maybe it's just going to be a distraction or have the opposite effect of what the desired effect is. See, in the time of the Sagittarius South Node, It's a time of personal wisdom. And so I didn't want my wisdom to overshadow or undershadow or whatever and confuse. And so we had to find our own truth from within. And I think that's what these years are all about, is being able to listen for the truth. Just imagine a bowl of water and you hit it from the side and it shakes all the water around. That is a vibration. And just like that, there are positive and negative vibrations that we feel. The dissonant vibrations, just like in music, are ones that just don't sound right. They just irritate us and make us feel drained of energy. And then there's the harmonious vibrations. And those are the ones that when we are in tune, we can hear, we can feel through our whole being. One way that someone can trick you, like let's use advertising for instance, they'll take something that is true and they'll combine it with something that's a lie. So there will be a part of you that feels that dissonance and then a part of you that feels the harmony. They're masking the lie with the truth in order to convince or to con. So I think myself and a lot of us, we've been working on becoming our own conduit for truth and not having to believe anybody else. And so I guess that's why I didn't want to make videos too early, was because I wanted to not have it my opinion and my, facts the way I see it take over. But for you to feel that still small voice from within. So as we're coming out of the Age of Pisces, Age of Pisces has been a long, long, long time, all the way through Jesus Christ and so many things. But some of the darkness of this time has been that, yes, it's a spiritual growth, but it's also an imprisonment to some degree. We've been limited, and we've felt the limitation. We've also been limited because we felt separated from each other, and yet we knew that the connection was just right there, but just right out of reach. Like many of us have those telepathic abilities, and yet we feel like something's just turned off. Like usually it's stronger, kind of like we have this Wi-Fi signal that's just not, it's spotty, very spotty, and it hasn't been as strong as it should be. And for some reason we just know that it was stronger at some point, right? But we've been working on things more in a material plane, and there were reasons for it, most definitely. But we are not material beings. We are spiritual beings living this temporal, physical existence. In this way, the physical body can feel like some kind of trap, some kind of imprisonment. And I've noticed as we're getting closer to the Age of Aquarius, we've seen this shift happening, but it's happening faster and faster. So, during the late 60s, you have that, the hippie movement, and that was tapping into that first Age of Aquarius energy that we knew was coming. And I talked to people from that time, and they say there was just such hope, to live as a young person at that time. You just felt like you're so alive and that the world was going to change, and it was just so exciting. And then when it didn't happen, or at least, it didn't seem that it happened, it was very disenchanting, extremely disenchanting. And the truth is it was coming, but it just took longer to get here than many thought. And now it's here, and it's coming in with a bang. And so we are becoming free, but yet we've become so used to this cage that some just don't want out anymore. They don't realize that they're in a cage, or I think they do realize it, but I've noticed that people over the last 15 years have gotten more and more disenchanted with the world and the way that world works, and people just don't want the carrot anymore. The carrot or the stick, honestly. Neither one is working anymore. So People don't care about status as much. People don't care about money as much. They don't care about working like a dog, just to prove a point or something. Just look at the way people dress. We just don't care what people think as much. We are just much more caring about the vibration and the energy and putting that as top priority compared to caring about the physical world. You can even see this in the films. Like, we are just getting more lost in imagination, which makes me think that perhaps the imagination is where the real world is now. And the real world is becoming kind of like an empty city. The buildings are there, but the souls aren't there anymore. The soul of it is gone. And the less people buy into it, and the less people really fixate on it, the less real it is. And so the real world actually proves it's the illusion, and then the illusion proves that it is the real world. And with the mythologies or with the fictional literature or films or concepts we're drawn to, I have to wonder, these thought forms that we build up, the ones that we all gravitate to, like perhaps the most recent one was that phenomenon of Game of Thrones. It makes me think that there's truth to that, and we all were tapping into that. And it's not necessarily that it was all truth at this moment in this plane of existence, but that comes from our consciousness in past lives, and we're all tapping into it, whether it's the ice wall, or whether it's the dragons, or whether it's the secrets of those in power and their desires. But another really interesting way to look at how we are tapping out, in World War II, the people were so behind the effort, and they really bought it. They were in it all the way, fighting for the cause. And then you look at what happened in Vietnam and how the people at that time, they believed in something higher on a spiritual level. They believed that if they didn't fight, that the wars would cease to exist. And you know what's interesting? In some ways, it was actually true, because we've never had a war, a technical war against a country ever since, because the people in control knew that the spiritual energy was not in agreement. It was not in alignment. And so any way that people in power would want to have a war, they would have to do it by other means. But we do not have the stomach for it. We have become peace-loving. We might war with each other online and with words and call each other names or whatever people do, but they're not ready to pick up a gun. They're not ready to actually, do what is necessary in that kind of hot war. And how wonderful is that? Because it really is true that the only way for war to end is for everyone just to no longer have the desire, no longer have the stomach for it. People say history repeats itself, and yet I think that it's all here. What we want is what will be. So what we imagine and what we allow for is what will be. And we had decided no more war, and here we are. This is going to continue. I do feel it. I feel that we ended our desire for war, and the leadership found clever ways to do it to us without, a technical war. And now, as we become savvy to those methods as well, those will no longer be allowed either. These drone strikes, or we'll attack places, but we won't call it a war, and we won't tell you about it, and we're just not going to go for this anymore. I do feel that we are on the verge of peace, worldwide peace. And I know that I'm creating this video, this kind of rambling thought video, at a time when the world is full of media that scares and all this kind of thing, but there's a difference between the illusion and the reality, like I said. And sometimes what we think is the reality is the illusion, and what we think is the illusion is the reality. I do think we are in that time, very, very much so. And I feel that films are more real than the news. I feel that what is in our soul and what we desire in our hopes and dreams is more real and more possible than what our history, or whatever, is telling us is possible. We really are in a time of miracles. Today, I just was a part of a worldwide meditation. I think that in the future, what I see is that we have a world where instead of war, we have these events where we have these telepathic, meditative connections. And our holidays will be less about candy and gifts and taking, and they'll be more about giving and nurturing and healing. That's another thing, is that I've noticed people getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and they need to work on their connection to nature and their connection to the truth and their personal truth. I just had this experience where I've been very healthy. I've been working on what I eat and, my diet and everything. And also, of course, the spiritual stuff to me is by far more important. But I've been very healthy, and then I took on a project that I thought I really wanted. I thought it was going to be really helpful. It was something I really believed in, and yet it was becoming so all-encompassing. It was taking over, and it was making me sick. And it was throwing the balance of my family out of whack. And my daughter had the worst week ever, and I got miserably sick. And then the moment that I just let go of that project, and I mean down to the thought of like, I'm done, I'm over this, I started feeling better. And so one of the brilliant things is the cleaner your system gets and the more you work on your healing and your health, the more your body will tell you exactly what your spirit wants. Instead of seeing this illness as, something to just fight against, I saw it as like, that's the gift right there, is that I'm telling myself in a really loudspeaker kind of way, no, we're not putting up with this anymore. And anyway, so that's just a little personal thing that has happened. So let's talk about the Age of Aquarius. And I'm going to talk about it in more videos, I'm sure. The Age of Aquarius is going to be where energy and vibration and resonance and harmony is the most important thing. It will trump everything to do with the material world. And because of this, our world will actually change. Because when we don't believe that matter is solid, that we actually see all of the water that's there, and we see all of the air, and that our hand is actually mostly just the emptiness between the atoms, then we will have the ability to make our world less material. I really do believe that everything is mind over matter, and when we change our mind, the matter literally changes. Enough people want the world to shift, and it's also the Age of Aquarius coming into play, that we just know it's destined to shift. It can never go back. People are saying, going back to normal. It's not going to go back to normal. And healing and learning and open-mindedness, and also possibly opening up to other dimensions, other beings. This is what Aquarius is all about. We are ready to see those that are not the same as us, to be excited about that. I think our spirits are ready for a change. I think we are bored with the way the world is, and we are pushing it in an upwards ascension. And let's be honest, we've lived in an illusion. You know it. Because we live our life, right? And then we live in our house, we go to our job, we get in our car, we fuel up with gas, we eat our food, and then we go to sleep. And we go to a whole new dimension. And we've been doing this all our lives. You know, 1 foot on one side and 1 foot on the other. Like we've been living in these multiple dimensions the whole time. But we kind of pretend on the surface like, oh, it's not real, you know. Maybe God is real, maybe he's coming back, whatever. But it's all going to happen when it happens. And until it happens, we're just going to keep eating the hamburgers. But now if you want to actually believe that, you're going to be the fish that's trying to swim upstream, because the powers that be and the energies that are in charge, I think we can feel that they are energetically taking us in a new direction, in a very exciting direction. But if you want things to go back to normal and you want to keep with that 3D material kind of world, it'll be exhausting to try to keep up that reality, because that reality is breaking down. I guess that's what the title of this video is. Reality as we know it is breaking down. So if you see that it is, and you know that it is, you're not crazy. And when things change, it's so scary because you just don't know, okay, is it going to be for the good or for the bad? Is it going to be better or worse? Well, this is why tapping into those harmonies and those vibrations is important, because you can't listen to what the news tells you. If you haven't learned that yet. You can't listen to what anyone tells you. You can't listen to what I tell you. The best thing you can do for yourself is to go out to nature, go out to somewhere that's grounded, that you can tune out, you know, any kind of artificial light, any artificial frequencies, artificial energy, and really get in touch with the rhythm and the heartbeat of the earth. And that's going to tell you, you know, if the earth is worried, then you'll hear it in the earth's heartbeat. And that is that step of faith of knowing things are going to be okay and better than okay when you have no evidence. This is also that switch in this Age of Aquarius, is that we're headed from the left brain thinking into the right brain thinking. And I think everybody in my channel knows what I'm talking about, because you guys are all the ones who are at the forefront, you know, in 2012, when things really started speeding up. You were the ones not fighting it, not resisting it as much, but you were saying, oh, I need to change. Okay, exciting, let's do this. So you were headed out of the concrete, you know, proof-based world of, you know, logic and this kind of thing, and headed into understanding that our senses, our technology, our ability to observe things using senses is very, very limited. And actually, the most evolved way we have to judge and to feel is actually to not judge at all, since that comes from the left brain thinking, but to tap into intuition. Our intuition is extremely evolved. Of course, some more than others, but it really is our way of knowing truth and of feeling what is. And the fact that we have not been told about it, we have not been acknowledged that it's real, or that this is how our soul operates. We've had to find it on our own. We get, you know, laughed at or mocked in certain circles. We are the hippies, right? And yet, I don't think there's a single person who's going to be an atheist or an agnostic when they are on their deathbed or the deathbed of someone that they truly love, because that's when you realize, you know, there is something more and I'm going to need to tap into it. It's now or never. Our spirits are fighting to be seen and fighting to be heard and fighting to break through, and they want a world that is more accustomed to us. You know, it's like we are, you know, fish trying to live without water, and it's just not working out. And I've seen people not only, you know, gaining weight, eating so unhealthy, and killing themselves with drug or alcohol, or just losing themselves into video games or addictions or antidepressants, and there's just more depression and anxiety and all these kinds of things that are people clocking out. And on the surface, it sounds like very bad, It sounds like, oh my gosh, our world is just, people are less happy than ever. But I think there's a good reason for it, and I think it is actually going to turn into something so amazing, which is that as all these lights are going out, as all these people are stepping out of the cities and saying, no more, I'm not going to play the game anymore, we are going to be turning on new lights, and these new lights are in a new world where we are acknowledging the power of meditation, telepathy, astral projection, the spirit, the power of love, who we are, what we're doing here, what we're capable of. What we want out of life is not on the menu, and that has got to change, and it is going to change. Now, for those that say, God isn't there because God isn't, how could God allow for all these horrible things to happen? There is a reason, and there was a purpose for this age of Pisces. Pisces was our spiritual growth. It was us having to be separated, having to be isolated, and having to find our God from within. So we were calling out, we were screaming, we were begging, horrible things happened, bloodshed, wars, and yet God did not stop it. And I do believe that nothing bad ever is allowed to happen unless it leads to something absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. Perhaps we would not be who we are without all of that pain and all of that anguish and separation. Separated from Source in order to grow ourselves, and in order to stop demanding that a father and mother do everything for us, but that we can learn to do things for ourselves. To grow in our own sovereignty and to grow in our own grace. When we scream to God when tragedy strikes, only to realize that a year later we are stronger than ever. We see that while we would never wish those events to happen, we do see and understand why they had to happen. We live in a physical reality where we have experienced by far more pain than pleasure. And once we no longer desire the physical reality, we will feel more pleasure than pain. We do not have to fight for our lives. We do not have to fight, take no thought for your life, meaning the spirit, right? Spirit is everything. And when we acknowledge that, then everything we feel in the physical plane will feel more pleasurable. And that's what we're headed towards. We've had enough. We are getting off the Ferris wheel, and we are creating a new existence. We have been living in a sickness where most of what surrounds us is toxic in some way. Yet because we are fighting to live and fighting to breathe and fighting to feel spirit, we're in a world where we don't get together and we don't have soul connection. Instead, we go to, a church and have someone try to rule over us. Or instead of a holiday being a time where we really feel each other's love and fill each other up with that love, the world keeps pushing this concept of materialism and jealousy and status, and that you're not enough unless you have this or you have that or you have this. And yet we still, as a people, we are fighting against that. And there are times when we are the happiest, where we have felt that pure connection of family. We've gone through feast and famine. We've gone through excess and poverty. We've experienced just about all there is to experience in a 3D material world. And now it's time for more. I've always been drawn to wisdom and wisdom of the elders. And yet I've noticed every generation that's been born has a natural wisdom to them, feeling like our world is devolving, and yet our consciousness of the children coming in is higher than ever. And it's an interesting situation where on one side, if you look at it just from the surface level, the whole world is devolving, and it has been, and everything's been falling apart. Yet, there's something beautiful happening, which is that if you look at on a spiritual level, everything is growing, and it has been, and everything spiritually is waking up. Spirituality is no longer seen as religion, because spirituality is a personal connection to Source and to God, and it does not need any kind of intermediary or organization to make that happen. It also doesn't need anyone to see it happening. You don't have to let the whole community see that you are pious and good. You just have to be pious and good within your own soul. So yes, with all of this depression, anxiety, tapping out of caring, apathy is another way that we are fighting against our reality. I'm sure you can think of 1,000 ways that people are fighting against the reality, the dynamics, the religious dynamics, the corporate structure dynamic, the caste system dynamic, the relationship dynamic, the holiday, what you're supposed to do dynamic, the how you should show your love by getting married and doing such and such dynamic, what you have to do to be a good person dynamic. All of these dynamics we are fighting against, because all of these dynamics, they're not real. They are a sickness, and they don't stem from that genuine harmony, that genuine resonance. And anything that doesn't stem from that genuine resonance, it's just going to go by the wayside. I mean, maybe it won't tomorrow, maybe it won't in a year, maybe it will, but it's just doomed to fail eventually. Because the stronger that the spirit becomes, the more we will not be living in a reality of material, but we will be living in a reality of energy. And the strongest energy is love. We've seen this in small ways. We've seen this where we're fighting against this kind of massive corporate food structure, and we've been going towards community gardens. We've seen this in terms of how many people have been coming to videos like this that are researching and looking for those spiritual answers and how to grow. It's just a movement that is taking over, and it's not about one person in power. It's, I guess, decentralized, as they say, but yet it is connected to Source, and we're just all helping each other get there, to unlocking our own power. And I think a lot of the power that we have is that power to be our own truth conduit. And I see it as, I don't know if you've ever seen a tuning fork, but I now imagine that I do have that tuning fork within me, and that when something vibrates to that beautiful harmony, that I know that it is true. And I can just feel it all over. I feel like goosebumps all over, or I feel warmth from inside, or I just feel like a numbness, a tingling, like I'm electrified. So I know that this is just kind of my thoughts. I didn't really write anything down, but I just wanted you guys to meet the new me, I guess. And I'm going to finish all of the astrology videos as well. I'm more sure than ever how important astrology is to help everyone to find themselves and to find their own soul and higher self. But I really do hope you've all survived this challenging time and you're coming out to the other side. It feels like a tunnel and the light is coming. And we'll get there. We will. So love and light to everybody, and can't wait to make more videos and to catch up. All right, talk soon.